I'm making my mom's pot roast. It's a tradition when she comes to our house that the first thing she does is make a pot roast for dinner because it's Peter's favorite thing that she cooks. You start with a chuck roast, which is a nice roast that has a lot of marbling in it. It's one of those cuts of meat that needs to be cooked for a really long time at a low temperature so that it becomes fork tender. And you want to start by generously salting and peppering both sides of the chuck roast. You want to heat about 2 tablespoons of canola oil in a Dutch oven or an oven-proof skillet and add the seasoned pot roast. You want the pan to be nice and hot so it sizzles when you add it. You're going to cook it about 2 to 3 minutes per side. And once the roast is nice and brown on one side, you just want to flip it and continue to cook it about 2 or 3 minutes on the other side until it gets nice color. Once the roast is nice and brown on both sides, you just want to remove it from the pan and add an onion that's been cut into 8 wedges, 2 carrots that have been peeled and chopped into about 2-inch pieces, and a few sprigs of thyme and a few sprigs of rosemary. Once the vegetables get a little bit of color on them, just move them over to the side of the pan, and you're going to add your pot roast back to the pan. You're going to add about a cup of red wine and just pour it over the roast, and then enough chicken or beef stock to almost cover the roast. This is probably going to be about 4 to 6 cups. And just give everything a nice stir so that the roast settles into the bottom of the pan. And this is going to get covered and go directly into the oven. We have a 325 degree preheated oven. And this is going to cook for about a total of 3.5 hours, but we're going to cook it for 2.5 hours. Take it out and add the remaining carrots and potatoes. The pot roast has been in the oven now for about 2.5 hours, and we're going to just pull it out. And add the remaining carrots and potatoes and let it continue to cook for about another 45 minutes to an hour. That smells wonderful. And make sure your potatoes and carrots are down in the liquid when you put them in. And then just put the top on it and put it right back in the oven. It's going to continue to cook for about 45 more minutes. The pot roast has been in the oven now for a total of about 3.5 hours. And it's going to be nice and tender. The vegetables are going to be tender. You want to test your potatoes just by inserting the tip of a paring knife into them, and if the knife goes in easily, the potatoes are nice and tender and done. And you can see the roast is just falling apart. It's so tender. And I usually just serve it with the vegetables around it and a little bit of the broth poured over the top of it. You can put the vegetables right on the platter. The rosemary and thyme and red wine smell wonderful together. And you can see how tender the roast is. It's just falling apart. And this is what we call fork tender. It's going to be melt in your mouth delicious. Spoon a little of the liquid over the pot roast and over and around the vegetables. And it's ready to go to the table. And usually I just garnish it with a couple of sprigs of fresh rosemary just to brighten it up a little. A little bit of fresh thyme sprinkled right on top. Doesn't that look wonderful?